It was exactly 11:47 p.m. when Officer Derek Morrison knocked on my cabin door announcing he had a warrant to search my property. The chill in his voice didn't come from the cold mountain air, it was something darker. I was Nathan Carter, a 75-year-old retired accountant who never imagined a simple fine over a tree would spiral into this nightmare. The man standing before me wasn't a real cop. He was a hired gun, a shadow sent by Cassandra Reed, the ruthless HOA president obsessed with squeezing every last penny from me. My historic pine tree too tall, too old, too much trouble for her. And when I refused to pay, the four $200 fine things went from letters to threats, then bullets. Before I could comprehend what was happening, a gunshot tore through my shoulder. Pain exploded like fire, and I crumpled to the floor, blood soaking into the faded rug beneath me. But then, chaos erupted. Three armed men crashed into the room from hidden spots, shouting orders. US Marshals, living inside my home, watching me, protecting me. Or so I thought. As my vision blurred and fear gripped me, I realized this wasn't just a fight over a tree. It was a war for my very life, and everything I held dear. Nathan Carter never expected a quiet retirement in the Rockies would turn into a nightmare. After 40 years crunching numbers, he had finally saved enough to buy a secluded log cabin nestled just outside Denver, a place where he could sip coffee on the porch and watch the golden sunrise paint the mountains. The centerpiece was an ancient pine tree, standing tall and proud for over a century, a living monument that had witnessed generations. For Nathan, it was a symbol of family resilience and peace. But peace was the first casualty. It all began with a knock that shattered the morning calm. Cassandra Reed, the HOA president, appeared like a force of nature in a sharp business suit, her icy blue eyes cutting straight through Nathan's defenses. She wasn't the typical HOA leader sending polite notices or gentle reminders. She was an enforcer, wielding power like a weapon. "I'm here to collect a fine," Cassandra said, flashing a document that felt more like a death warrant. For $200, for a tree that had outlived the state itself. Nathan's protests fell on deaf ears. "Rules are rules," she said with a smirk that made his skin crawl. "And in this community, I am the rules." Nathan tried to reason, citing the tree's historical value, the impossibility of removal costs, and the soul of the community itself. Cassandra's cold smile never wavered. "At your age, stress can be dangerous," she warned, lowering her voice. "Especially with your daughter Jessica's illness. You shouldn't add unnecessary worry." That was the moment Nathan realized this was no ordinary dispute. How did she know about Jessica's cancer? He'd never spoken of it beyond close family. Fear settled like a stone in his gut. This woman wasn't just an administrator. She was a predator hunting with cruel precision. What followed was a relentless siege on Nathan's life. Complaints about septic odors led to a $15,000 replacement demand. Suspicious activity reports brought police visits. A sudden IRS audit threw his finances into chaos. The power kept cutting out in eerie patterns, and mysterious groceries appeared in his fridge, organic, unfamiliar, unsettling. His emails and phone calls were intercepted or altered. Every day his home turned further into a prison. Worst of all was the discovery that his sanctuary was compromised. Unknown footsteps echoed at night. A single black hair found on his pillow. He was grey-haired and alone. Strange shadows crossed his porch court on security cameras that failed precisely when needed. It became clear he was not alone. Then Sandra Foster appeared. A kind woman from the grocery store aisle, an unlikely ally. But her real identity was far more complicated, an undercover FBI agent embedded in Cassandra's operation. Sandra revealed the horrifying truth. Cassandra was not just running an overbearing HOA, but a sprawling criminal enterprise. Using legal harassment, bureaucratic pressure, and intimidation tactics, she forced families out acquiring properties below market value to flip for massive profits. Nathan's world crumbled as the layers of deception peeled back. The woman he feared was part of a criminal network laundering $500 million through HOA fronts across multiple states, bribing officials, destroying hundreds of families. But Nathan refused to be a victim. Despite losing his driver's license, having his bank accounts frozen, and being isolated like a ghost in his own home, he steeled himself to fight back. The knowledge that his suffering was orchestrated, that federal agents had been living in secret compartments inside his home, watching his every move for months, was both terrifying and empowering. He was a pawn in a grand operation to bring down Cassandra, but also a man determined to reclaim his dignity and protect his family. The tension in Nathan's cabin grew unbearable as the night stretched on. Every creak and shadow felt like a threat, every silence a warning. But nothing prepared him for the night he found the steaming cup of Earl Grey tea sitting on his workbench, tea he loathed and never drank. Someone had been in his basement, someone who shouldn't have been there. The discovery shattered whatever fragile calm he clung to. How many times had strangers walked these floors unnoticed? How much of his life was under surveillance? The reality that 3 US Marshals had been living secretly within his home for months hit him like a physical blow. Hidden behind a false wall in the basement, concealed compartments in his bedroom closet, a hidden room under the staircase. These weren't just secure hideouts. They were a reminder that Nathan's sanctuary had been compromised to the core. His daily routine was no longer his own. The Marshals had studied his habits down to the minute: his breakfast at 7:15 sharp, his obsession with the sports section, the way he yelled answers at Jeopardy, his Sunday calls to Jessica at 2:00 p.m. Mountain Time. Nathan had become their unwitting lab rat. The sense of betrayal was suffocating. He felt watched, studied, manipulated. Yet these agents had been the only barrier between him and Cassandra's merciless campaign. That night after Cassandra's ominous visit, Nathan's anxiety reached a breaking point. He couldn't sleep. The classical music drifting from the basement radio was an eerie soundtrack to his unraveling mind. But there was no radio, no logical explanation. Armed with a flashlight, he descended into the basement, heart pounding so loudly he feared it would betray him. The room was deathly silent. The steaming tea was the only sign someone had been there recently, mocking him with something he hated. Paranoia settled deep. Nathan questioned his sanity, but resolved to fight the invisible war being waged against him. He called lawyers, 3 different firms. Each response was a dead-end: medical leaves, conflicts of interest, or veiled warnings about Cassandra's power. He tried official channels, city planning, state HOA boards. Each was met with excuses or silence. The system was broken, corrupted. Meanwhile, Cassandra's attacks intensified. A health inspector demanded a costly septic system replacement. Police questioned him about suspicious activity. An IRS audit drained his resources. His world shrank to a cage of fear and isolation. Then came the message, "Stop fighting," or else written in the steam on his bathroom mirror. Someone had been inside while he showered, vulnerable and unaware. The threat was chilling, personal, and unmistakably real. Determined to protect himself, Nathan invested in security cameras, motion sensors, new locks. He even attempted to get a firearm permit, a first in his life. But Cassandra's reach extended to fabricating a dubious background check to deny him. The psychological warfare was relentless, calculated to break him piece by piece. Yet, in the darkest moments, an unexpected ally emerged: Sandra Foster, Cassandra's assistant, who was really an undercover FBI agent. She revealed Cassandra's ruthless business, turning HOA rules into weapons to extort, intimidate, and seize properties across multiple states through fear and legal loopholes. Nathan's fight was no longer just about his tree or cabin. It was a battle against a criminal empire cloaked in the guise of suburban normalcy. Nathan Carter's world had been shattered, but the cracks revealed new truths that changed everything he thought he knew. What started as a simple fight over a tree morphed into a deeper battle, one against a shadowy network of corruption, manipulation, and betrayal that stretched far beyond his secluded mountain cabin. At first, Nathan believed he was merely a victim of a petty HOA president's overreach. But as layers peeled back, he saw Cassandra Reed not just as a bureaucrat with too much power, but as a criminal mastermind running a vast money laundering scheme disguised beneath the innocent veneer of property management. Every accident and violation that had befallen him was no accident at all. They were deliberate, calculated moves designed to isolate, destabilize, and force him out. His septic system failing overnight sabotage. The mysterious groceries in his fridge psychological warfare. The IRS audit another lever to choke his resources. The power outages, a sinister pattern meant to wear him down. Then came the revelation that federal agents had been living inside his home, spying on him for months. This knowledge was both a shock and a strange comfort. It meant he wasn't alone, but also that his life had been turned upside down, without his consent, transformed into a tool for an operation he barely understood. The emotional toll was immense. Nathan grappled with feelings of violation and distrust. The agents had watched his most private moments, his grief over his deceased wife, his desperate phone calls with his dying daughter, the small rituals that gave his life meaning. To feel so exposed, so powerless, was crushing. But amid this despair came clarity. Nathan realized that the fight was bigger than him. It was about justice, about exposing a system where the powerful preyed on the vulnerable. And it was about reclaiming his dignity and agency. He remembered Sandra Foster, the friendly assistant turned FBI agent, and her warnings about Cassandra's ruthless empire. Her words gave him a new lens to see the world, a world where legal loopholes became weapons, where bureaucratic overreach masked criminal intent, and where courage was the only shield against tyranny. No longer just a victim, Nathan began to see himself as a participant in a larger battle for truth. His fear was still present, but now mingled with resolve. The cabin, once a refuge, was a front line. His life, once quiet, was now a beacon, shining a light on dark corruption. Nathan's perspective had shifted from helplessness to agency. He was no longer just defending a tree or a property. He was fighting to expose an empire built on deception and destruction, and to protect those who couldn't fight back. After months of relentless harassment, fear, and isolation, Nathan Carter faced a crossroads. The woman who had torn his life apart. Cassandra Reed was more than just an HOA president. She was a criminal empire's queenpin, orchestrating a vast scheme of legal manipulation and violence. But within the chaos, a flicker of hope emerged. With the support of Sandra Foster, the undercover FBI agent who had infiltrated Cassandra's operation, Nathan found himself at the center of a covert federal investigation known as Operation Thornfield. The mission was clear, but dangerous: dismantle Cassandra's sprawling network of money laundering and property theft and bring her to justice. For Nathan, this was more than just an opportunity to fight back. It was a chance to reclaim control over his life and the legacy of his family. The cabin in the Rockies, once a peaceful retreat, had become a strategic safehouse and operational base for the federal agents. Though he had been unknowingly used as bait, Nathan chose to transform that role into power. The FBI agents explained their strategy. Cassandra's empire relied on secrecy, intimidation, and carefully controlled narratives. She had manipulated homeowners, bribed officials, and silenced dissent with fear. But every criminal empire has a weakness, and Nathan held the key. The hidden safe in his basement, left by the cabin's previous owner, contained critical financial records that could expose the entire operation. Nathan volunteered to be the frontline partner in the sting. He began working closely with the agents, using his intimate knowledge of the cabin's layout to coordinate surveillance and prepare for Cassandra's inevitable return. The psychological burden was heavy, knowing he was bait in a trap, but the chance to strike back galvanized his resolve. This new role transformed Nathan from a passive victim into an active participant in the fight against corruption. It gave him purpose amid despair and a renewed sense of hope for justice. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in months, Nathan felt the possibility of victory. Nathan Carter's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. The man who had once been a quiet, reserved retiree, content to watch the sunrise and reminisce about the past, was now a fierce survivor, hardened by betrayal and adversity. The relentless siege on his life had forged in him a resilience he never thought possible. Faced with threats to his safety, financial ruin, and the constant invasion of his privacy, Nathan evolved from a frightened victim into a determined warrior. Each day brought new challenges power outages timed to trap him in darkness. Mysterious footsteps echoing through the cabin. Shadowy figures watching from a distance. But Nathan met them head-on, refusing to be broken. The training and support from the federal agents gave him tools to defend himself physically and mentally. He learned to recognize signs of surveillance, set traps to detect intruders, and gather evidence discreetly. His once passive existence was replaced by vigilance and strategic thinking. Emotionally, Nathan grappled with the immense toll the ordeal had taken. The fear for his daughter Jessica's health, coupled with the loss of privacy and dignity, pushed him to the brink. Yet instead of succumbing to despair, Nathan channeled his pain into purpose. He began documenting every detail, strange occurrences, threats, patterns, building a case not just for the authorities, but for his own sanity. This act of reclaiming control helped him resist the psychological warfare designed to break his spirit. His interactions with Agent Sandra Foster deepened his understanding of justice and sacrifice. Though betrayed by those who monitored him, Nathan found a reluctant trust in the agents fighting Cassandra's empire. Their shared goal forged an unspoken bond. Nathan's growth was not just survival, but empowerment. He refused to let his legacy be defined by fear. Instead, he became a symbol of resistance against corruption, proving that even in the darkest moments, courage and tenacity can light the way. The final confrontation was nothing short of cinematic, but the stakes were terrifyingly real. Cassandra Reed had brought her full force to Nathan's doorstep, 6 heavily armed mercenaries backed by professional soldiers moving with military precision. Nathan's peaceful cabin in the Rockies had become a battlefield. From behind bulletproof glass, Cassandra's cold voice rang out over a megaphone, chilling and commanding. She offered Nathan a cruel choice: surrender and ensure his daughter Jessica's cancer treatment continued uninterrupted, or resist and watch her health deteriorate. It was psychological warfare at its most ruthless, leveraging a father's love against his will to manipulate him. But Nathan refused to bow. With the support of the US Marshals and FBI agents, he fought back fiercely, using his intimate knowledge of the cabin's secret tunnels and layout to guide the federal team. The clash was brutal and chaotic, with bullets ricocheting and echoing through the timber walls. Yet Nathan's courage and determination became the turning point. Behind the scenes, Cassandra's empire was unraveling. Agent Sandra Foster revealed Cassandra's trap. Operation Thornfield was never meant to be a simple sting. It was a carefully crafted strategy to expose her network of bribed officials, money laundering fronts, and forced foreclosures. Despite the overwhelming odds, justice prevailed. Cassandra and her cohorts were arrested, hundreds of millions of dollars in laundered assets seized, and over 200 families freed from their grip. Nathan's role, though fraught with pain and betrayal, had been pivotal, but the scars remained. Nathan sold the cabin unable to face the memories it held and moved to Seattle to be near Jessica in her final months. The psychological wounds, post-traumatic stress, distrust, and loss were battles he faced daily. Yet even in the aftermath, Nathan found hope. The nightmare had ended, but his story became a beacon for others fighting unseen battles. His resilience, bravery, and refusal to give in inspired a community and reminded the world that standing up against corruption, no matter the cost, is worth every sacrifice. Nathan Carter's story is a stark reminder that even in the quietest corners of our lives, shadows of corruption and cruelty can lurk. His ordeal shows how power can be abused through legal systems designed to protect, turning community into control and trust into manipulation. The most profound lesson is the necessity of vigilance and resilience. When faced with overwhelming adversity, surrender is not the only option. Courage and determination can turn the tide. Nathan's journey teaches us that justice is not guaranteed. It must be fought for even when the odds seem insurmountable. It also highlights the complex nature of trust. Sometimes those who appear to help may also betray, and the path to truth is fraught with deception. This story encourages homeowners and community members to stay informed about their rights and local governance. Awareness of HOA rules and their potential misuse is vital to protect oneself from harassment. Establishing solid legal support early on and documenting suspicious activities can be crucial defenses. On a broader scale, it urges communities to demand transparency and accountability from officials and associations. Supporting whistleblowers and federal investigations can help dismantle corrupt systems. Most importantly, it teaches individuals to trust their instincts and seek help when situations feel wrong, knowing that standing up against injustice is a collective responsibility, not just a personal battle.